My parents pulled me out of school until I agreed to take the blame to shield their golden son. I said fine. But when the screen flashed red and the IRS was copied in, my mom broke down crying. Can you imagine the look on your father's face, cold as stone, telling you he'd rather see you kidnapped and sent to a desert camp than admit his golden son cheated? That's the moment I realized I wasn't his daughter. I was just a pawn in his twisted game. And that was the moment I decided he'd pay. It started with a soft thud, a glossy brochure landing on the polished mahogany of my dad's desk. Sunrise Wilderness Therapy, it read, plastered with smiling teenagers scaling rock walls under a blinding desert sun. Where troubled teens find their path. I just stared at it, my hands frozen at my sides. Monday morning, my dad, Richard, said, his voice terrifyingly calm. He leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepled like he was about to give a sermon. You'll go to Principal Abernathy's office and confess to hacking the school portal. You'll take responsibility for changing Holden's AP history grade. My stomach twisted. I didn't do it. But he just kept going like I hadn't spoken at all. Or, he continued, Tuesday morning at 2 a.m., 2 very professional transporters will arrive at your bedroom door. They have keys. They have authorization. And they will take you to Utah whether you're awake or not. The room actually tilted. I gripped the edge of his desk, my knuckles white against the dark wood. You can't, I whispered. I can. He slid a packet of papers across the desk. Legal documents. Authorization forms. All signed. All dated. You're a minor, Marin. I'm your father. The law is very clear about what I can do. My throat closed up. Just that morning, I'd been fixing the router in the hallway, hoping he'd notice, hoping he'd say something like, good work, or, thanks, sweetheart. Instead, I'd overheard him in here with Catherine, their voices low and urgent. 100% plagiarism flag, my mom, Catherine, had said. Yale's recruitment office will see it. Holden can't afford this. Not with the lacrosse scholarship on the line. I'd pressed myself against the wall, listening to them discuss my brother's AP history final like it was a corporate crisis. Which, I suppose, to them it was. Holden Wright, star athlete, future Yale legacy, caught cheating. Their golden child tarnished. And somehow, that became my problem. I have early acceptance to Stanford, I said now, hating how small my voice sounded. I have a 4.0 GPA. I've never even had detention. Richard waved this away like he was swatting a fly. None of that matters if you can't be a team player, Marin. This family has a legacy. Your brother's future is at stake. He looked at me, almost bored. Your future? Is irrelevant. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Holden is an athlete. He brings value. You. His eyes swept over me, cold and assessing. You fix computers. That's not a legacy. That's a hobby. Those words landed like a slap. I'd spent 17 years trying to be useful to these people. Fixing their devices. Troubleshooting their network. Managing their passwords. Always hoping that if I just made myself indispensable enough, they'd finally see me. But standing there, watching my father look at me like I was a line item to be managed. I understood. I was never their daughter. I was always just a resource. I won't do it, I said. Catherine appeared in the doorway then, perfectly dressed, as always. Her country club pearls gleaming. Richard. Is everything settled? Not quite. He nodded toward me. Our daughter is being difficult. She sighed, the same exasperated sound she made when the caterers arrived late. Marin, honey, just do what your father says. It's one little confession. You'll be fine. I'll have a criminal record. Oh, don't be dramatic. She examined her manicured nails. It's a school matter. It'll go away. But Holden's plagiarism won't. That's the point. I stated the obvious. I take the fall. He stays clean. Yale never knows. The Wright family machine keeps running smoothly. Monday morning, Richard repeated. Principal Abernathy is expecting you at 8 a.m. He'd already arranged it. Of course he had. This was never a discussion. This was a notification. And if I refuse? He picked up his phone, showed me the screen. A contact labeled Sunrise Transport Services. His thumb hovered over the call button. I have their 24-hour line, he said quietly. They can be here in 6 hours if needed. But I'd rather you chose the sensible option. My legs felt weak. The study seemed to shrink around me. All dark wood and expensive leather, and the faint smell of his cologne. A prison dressed up as success. I need to think I managed. You have until Monday. He set the phone down. I suggest you think quickly. I turned toward the door, but his voice stopped me. Oh, and Marin? I'll be keeping your laptop and phone until this is resolved. Just to ensure you don't do anything foolish. He held out his hand. Waiting. I pulled my phone from my pocket with shaking fingers. Handed it over. He plucked my laptop bag from where I'd set it by the door. Go to your room, Catherine said, not unkindly. Like she was talking to a child who needed a timeout, not a teenager being blackmailed by her own parents. Get some rest. You'll feel better in the morning. I climbed the stairs on autopilot. Heard the lock click behind me when I reached my bedroom. The sound of my door being secured from the outside. I pressed my palms against the wood, my forehead resting on the cool surface. Please, I whispered, hating myself for it. After everything I've done for you. No answer. Just footsteps retreating down the hallway. I sank to the floor, still hoping they'd come back. Still hoping this was some kind of test that I could pass if I just found the right answer. Still seeking their love. Even now. Especially now. Saturday light filtered through my bedroom curtains, weak and gray. I'd been trapped there for 14 hours. My stomach ached from skipping dinner, but the nausea won every time I thought about eating the granola bar Catherine slid under my door that morning. I pulled myself off the bed and walked to my bookshelf. Third shelf from the top, wedged between my AP chemistry textbook and last year's yearbook. My fingers found the hollow space I'd carved out months ago. The burner phone was exactly where I left it. Emergency device. That's what I told myself when I bought it with cash from my bug bounties, just in case. I never imagined the emergency would be my own parents. The screen glowed to life. One contact saved, Mrs. Vance. I typed fast, thumbs shaking. Need help. Locked in. Can you access school server? Check Holden's AP history final. The response came in 40 seconds. On it. Stay calm. I paced the room while I waited. 6 steps to the window. 6 steps back. My mind ran calculations. Probabilities. Escape routes. But every scenario dead-ended at the same problem. I'm 17. Legally, they owned me. 10 minutes passed. Then, oh my God, Marin. My heart stuttered. What did you find? Plagiarism confirmed. Essay purchased from Academic Mill. But there's more. Checking the document header now. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone gripped so tight my fingers ached. The house was quiet except for the occasional creak of floorboards below. Richard and Catherine moving through their Saturday routines like nothing was wrong. Like they didn't just threaten to have me kidnapped. The phone buzzed. I found the forwarding chain in the file metadata. The receipt was emailed to our .right@rightassociates.com. I read it 3 times. Not just academic dishonesty. Corporate fraud. Richard used his work email to facilitate the transaction. He likely expensed it. My father didn't just fail Holden. He committed embezzlement to cover it up. The room seemed to tilt. I pressed my palm against the wall, steadying myself. This was bigger than a plagiarism scandal. This was criminal. Federal charges. Prison time. Another buzz. Are you safe? Should I call someone? I wanted to say yes. Wanted to tell her to call the police. Call anyone. But I knew how this plays out. Richard has lawyers. He has money. He has a network of people at the country club who owe him favors. And I had nothing except this phone and a teacher who cared. Not yet, I typed. Need more time. Downstairs, I heard Richard's voice. Muffled through the floor, but I caught fragments. Tuesday morning. Confirmed. 2 a.m. Pickup. He was talking to them. The transporters. Making it real. Something shifted inside my chest. Not fear anymore. Something colder. Sharper. I stopped crying. Just stopped. The tears dried up like someone turned off a faucet. Because I finally understood. There was no earning my way out of this. No amount of usefulness would make them love me. I could fix every computer, solve every problem, sacrifice everything, and it would never be enough. They didn't see a daughter. They saw a tool. And when a tool stops being useful, you discard it. I stood and walked to the heating vent in the corner of my room. The screws came out easily. I've practiced this. Behind the metal grate, tucked into the ductwork, was a small USB drive. Cold wallet. $5,000 in cryptocurrency from 3 years of bug bounties. My escape fund. I powered up my old tablet, the one Richard didn't know about, hidden in my closet behind winter coats. Connected the USB. My hands were steady now. Clinical. The cryptocurrency exchanged to a prepaid Visa in 17 minutes. I watched the progress bar fill, thinking about all those nights I spent hunting vulnerabilities in corporate systems. All those reward payments I saved instead of spent. I was preparing for this without knowing it. Can you set up a trap? I texted Mrs. Vance. On the school server? What kind of trap? The kind that deploys evidence when triggered. The email logs. The fraud. Can you do it? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Yes. But Marin, this will destroy him. My finger hovered over the keyboard. I thought about my father's face when he handed me that brochure. The cold certainty in his voice. The way he looked at me like I was already gone. Good. I typed back. Catherine's footsteps on the stairs. I shoved the phone under my pillow, hid the tablet under my mattress. She unlocked my door, edged it open. Carried a tray with a sandwich and apple slices. You should eat something, she said, not meeting my eyes. She set the tray on my desk and turned to leave. Mom. She paused. Hand on the doorframe. Why are you doing this? She looked at me then. Really looked. And for half a second I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt. Maybe. Or shame. But then it was gone. Your brother needs this, she said quietly. The family needs this. And what do I need? She didn't answer. Just closed the door. Locked it. I listened to her footsteps fade. Retrieved the phone from under my pillow. Trap armed. Payload ready to deploy on command. Are you sure about this? Mrs. Vance texted. I looked around my room. At the trophies from academic competitions Richard never attended. The certificates from coding camps Catherine never asked about. The Stanford acceptance letter pinned to my bulletin board that they dismissed as irrelevant. This was never my home. These were never my parents. They were captors. And I was done being their prisoner. I'm sure I typed. Let's end this. On Sunday night, the country club's crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across white tablecloths, making everything look sharp and expensive. I smoothed my navy dress, Catherine's choice, not mine, and forced my face into something neutral. Blink. The expression I'd practiced in the mirror for the last hour. Richard had his hand on my elbow, guiding me. To anyone watching, it probably looked protective. Fatherly. But his fingers dug into the soft spot just above my bone. A private reminder that I was here because he allowed it. Smile, Marin, he murmured as we approached the Haversham table. You look like someone died. Not yet, I thought. But give it until Monday. The Havershams rose to greet us. Mrs. Haversham and Pearls. Mr. Haversham in his Yale reunion tie. Their daughter was at Princeton, I remembered. Catherine made sure I knew that. As if I needed another reminder of what legacy looks like when parents actually invest in it. Richard. Catherine. Marin, dear. You look so grown up. I smiled. Said thank you. Let them talk around me while I cataloged exits. The main doors behind us. The terrace to my right. The service hallway near the kitchen. Old habits. Always know where the doors are. And where's that handsome brother of yours? Mrs. Haversham asked. Holden's finishing up lacrosse practice, Richard said, his voice warm with pride. The same voice that, 2 days ago, threatened me with kidnappers in the middle of the night. Yale's been very interested in his performance this season. Oh, how wonderful. You must be so proud. Catherine beamed. We certainly are. He's worked so hard. I pressed my lips together. Holden's hard work consisted of hiring someone to write his essays and charming teachers into extending deadlines. But sure, let's celebrate that. Richard's hand tightened on my elbow. Warning. I kept smiling. Well, We should find our table, Catherine said. Lovely to see you both. We moved through the dining room like we were on parade. Richard stopped every few feet to shake hands, clap shoulders, laugh at jokes I couldn't hear over the blood rushing in my ears. Catherine floated beside him, perfect in her silk blouse and country club politics. I was wallpaper. Furniture. The daughter who existed to make them look complete. Our table was near the windows. Holden arrived 15 minutes late, his hair still damp from the shower, smelling like expensive body spray. He dropped into his chair with the easy confidence of someone who's never been locked in his bedroom. Traffic was crazy, he said, though we all knew he just didn't care about being on time. You're here now. That's what matters. Catherine passed him a menu. The salmon is supposed to be excellent tonight. I studied my own menu without reading it. My clutch sat in my lap, small and black and unremarkable. Inside, lipstick, emergency $20, and the burner phone wrapped in a scarf to muffle any vibration. Across the table, Richard leaned toward the Caldwells. His voice carried just enough for nearby tables to overhear. Marin's been under a lot of stress lately, he said, like he was confiding something difficult. Her Stanford acceptance has been wonderful, of course, but sometimes brilliant kids put too much pressure on themselves. Mrs. Caldwell made a sympathetic sound. We've actually been discussing a therapeutic break, Richard continued. Somewhere she can disconnect. Reset. The teenage years can be so overwhelming. My hands clenched around the menu. He was doing it. Pre-spinning my disappearance. Planting the story so that, when I vanished Tuesday morning, everyone would nod and say, oh yes. Poor thing. She needed help. That sounds very wise, Mr. Caldwell says. Our nephew did something similar, came back a different person. I'll bet he did, I thought. 3 months in the Utah desert with no contact will change anyone. Catherine touched my hand. Sweetheart, are you all right? You look pale. I'm fine. My voice sounded far away. Just tired. Maybe you should visit the ladies' room, she suggested. Translation. Go fix your face, you're embarrassing us. I stood. Took my clutch. Walked toward the hallway near the restrooms, my heels clicking against marble. The hallway was quiet. Dim. I slipped into the single-stall bathroom and locked the door behind me. My hands shook as I pulled out the burner phone. I'd kept it on silent since yesterday, checking it only when I was certain I was alone. Now, I thumbed it on. The screen glowed pale in the fancy bathroom lighting. One new message. Mrs. Vance. Payload armed. 2 words. That's all. But my chest loosened for the first time since we arrived. The trap was set. The server script was loaded. The evidence was compiled and queued. Tomorrow morning, when I walked into that building, I wouldn't be defenseless. I'd be the one holding the trigger. I deleted the message, powered down the phone, wrapped it back in the scarf, and tucked it into my clutch. When I returned to the table, Holden was telling some story about lacrosse practice. Something about a goal he scored, a play he made. Richard laughed, genuinely delighted. That's my boy, he said. I sat down, picked up my water glass. Let the conversation flow around me. Dinner arrived. Salmon for Catherine, steak for Richard, pasta for Holden. I ordered soup because it's hard to look like you're eating when you can barely swallow. You should eat more than that, Catherine said quietly. You're getting too thin. I took a spoonful. It tasted like nothing. After dinner, Richard excused himself to smoke cigars with the Haversham men. Catherine drifted toward the bar to gossip with the tennis ladies. Holden headed for the lobby, probably to flirt with the hostess. I followed him, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. He was leaning against the coat check counter, scrolling through his phone, smirking at something. Holden. He looked up, the smirk widened. Hey sis. You surviving? Barely. Yeah, well. He pocketed his phone. Maybe next time don't make things so complicated. Just take the hit for the team, you know. Something in my chest went very cold. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This person who shared my DNA. My last name. My home. This stranger who thought my future was a reasonable sacrifice for his convenience. And I felt nothing. Not anger. Not hurt. Just a distant clinical observation. He was not my brother. He was a symptom of the disease that was this family. You're right, I said quietly. I should have made things simpler. He blinked, surprised. Oh. Well. Good. See you at home. I walked back toward the dining room, but I didn't feel afraid anymore. I felt clear, focused. They were at the table when I returned, Richard and Catherine discussing golf schedules. They looked up when I approached. Feeling better? Catherine asked. Much better. I met Richard's eyes. Let him see the daughter who'd learned her place. The one who understood the family came first. Don't worry, Dad. I'll handle everything tomorrow. Something in his face relaxed. Victory. He thought I was giving in. Accepting my role. Good girl, he said. I knew you'd see reason. I smiled. It felt cold on my face. Precise. I always do. Later, in the car ride home, I watched the streetlights blur past my window. Catherine hummed along to classical radio. Richard drove with one hand, relaxed and confident. They thought they'd won. They had no idea what Monday morning would bring. No idea that while they were parading Holden around, I was confirming the weapon that would dismantle everything they'd built. Tomorrow would determine everything. The trap was set. All I had to do was spring it. Monday morning, I dressed in my Sterling Hall uniform with hands that barely shook, buttoned the blazer, straightened the tie, checked my reflection in the mirror, and practiced the expression I needed. Broken. Defeated. A girl who knew she'd lost. It wasn't hard. I'd worn this face before. The real trick was remembering it was a costume now. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled like Catherine's French press coffee and the expensive bread she ordered from that bakery in Greenwich. Normal morning sounds. Richard reading something on his tablet. Holden crunching cereal like he didn't have a care in the world. Because he doesn't. Not anymore. I'm taking care of everything. I clutched my school bag against my chest as I entered, letting my shoulders curl inward, making myself small. The broken burner phone sat right on top, waiting to be found. The perfect decoy. Catherine glanced up from her coffee, and I caught the flash of relief in her eyes. She thought I'd accepted my fate. Good. Morning, I mumbled, heading for the door. Wait. Richard's voice stopped me cold. He set down his tablet, his eyes sharp. Suspicious. What's in the bag? My pulse spiked, but I'd planned for this. I pulled the bag tighter, took a half step back. Just school stuff. Show me. Dad, I need to, now, Marin. I let my eyes fill with tears. Real ones. Because some part of me was still terrified. Still that girl banging on her bedroom door. Please. It's nothing. I just want to go. He stood, crossed the kitchen in 3 strides. Holden stopped chewing to watch. Catherine set down her coffee cup. Give it here, Richard said, hand extended. I clutched it harder. And that's the key. The resistance. If I'd handed it over easily, he might have suspected. But this desperate, futile defiance? This is what he expects from me. No, I whispered. Please, just let me have this one thing. He ripped the bag from my hands. I stumbled backward, bumping into the counter. Watched him unzip it roughly. Dump the contents onto the kitchen island. Textbooks. Folders. A calculator. And there, sliding across the granite, my burner phone. Richard picked it up slowly. Turned it over in his hands. Well, he said softly. What do we have here? It's nothing, I said, voice breaking. I just needed a way to what? Coordinate your little schemes. He held it up to the light like it was evidence in a trial. Which I suppose it was. Were you planning to call someone? Your teacher friend, maybe? Get her to help you run away. No. I wasn't going to enough. He dropped the phone on the tile floor, raised his foot. Dad, wait. The screen shattered under his heel. He ground it down, plastic cracking, glass splintering across the kitchen. When he lifted his shoe, the phone was in pieces, completely destroyed. Catherine exhaled. Actually sighed with relief. Thank God. Richard, I was so worried she'd try something foolish. Holden laughed, mouth full of cereal. Guess you're really alone now, huh? No phone, no friends, no way out. I stared at the broken pieces. Let my breathing hitch. Once. Twice. Let my hands shake. Then they all looked away. Turned back to their coffee, their cereal, their tablets. And in that moment, when their attention shifted, I let my breathing steady. Just for 3 seconds. Just long enough to remember. This was the plan. I needed them to find the phone. Needed them to destroy it. Needed them so drunk on their own victory that they'd never suspect the real trap. The one already armed in the cloud. The one that didn't need my device. Any terminal connected to the school network would do. I just needed 10 seconds at a keyboard. Get your things, Richard said, checking his watch. We're leaving in 5 minutes. I gathered my books with trembling fingers, shoving them back into my bag. The burner phone stayed where it was. A sacrifice on the altar of their arrogance. Worth it. Every piece. The drive to Sterling Hall Academy felt longer than usual. Richard drove. Catherine in the passenger seat. Both of them relaxed now. Celebrating. This is for the best, sweetheart. Catherine said, twisting to look at me in the back seat. You'll see. Once this is all settled, everything will go back to normal. Normal. Like there was ever anything normal about this family. Principal Abernathy has the confession letter ready, Richard added. His eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. You sign it. We submit it to the school board. And this whole mess goes away. Holden keeps his scholarship. The family reputation stays intact. And me? I asked quietly. You'll learn an important lesson about loyalty. The Sterling Hall campus appeared through the morning fog. All brick buildings and manicured lawns. Students walking to class with their coffee cups and backpacks, completely unaware that in about 15 minutes, everything was going to change. Richard parked in the visitor lot, closer to the administrative building. More convenient for their purposes. We walked across campus like I was being escorted to my execution. Richard on one side, Catherine on the other. A prisoner between her guards. Students stared. Some whispered. They all knew who the Wrights were. Holden's family. The ones with money and the connections and the country club memberships. No one asked if I was okay. The administrative building smelled like floor polish and old paper. Principal Abernathy's office was at the end of the hall, door already open, waiting for us. He stood when we entered, extending his hand to Richard. Mr. Wright. Mrs. Wright. Then, barely glancing at me, Marin. Gerald. Richard said, shaking firmly. First names. Of course, they're on a first-name basis. Thank you for accommodating us this morning. Anything for Sterling Hall's most generous donors. Abernathy gestured to the chairs. Please. Sit. Richard and Catherine took the leather chairs facing the desk. I was left standing until Abernathy pointed to a smaller chair off to the side. The student chair. The one positioned lower than everyone else's. Saturday, now then. Abernathy pulled out a folder, opened it to reveal a typed document. This is the confession we discussed. It outlines how you, Marin, access the school portal using your computer science knowledge to alter your brother's grade. Very straightforward. You sign here, we file it with the disciplinary committee, and the matter is resolved. He slid the paper toward me. A pen rested on top. 3 predators surrounded me. Richard to my left, leaning forward slightly. Catherine to my right, hands folded in her lap. Abernathy behind his desk, already reaching for his official stamp. No phone. No visible help. No way out that they could see. But I didn't need any of those things. Because the trap wasn't in my hands. It never was. It was in the cloud, armed and ready, waiting for one single command. I looked at the confession letter. At the pen. At their expectant faces. I stared at the words swimming on the page. I, Marin Wright, confess to unauthorized access of the Sterling Hall Academy student portal. Richard stood behind Abernathy's chair, arms crossed. Catherine perched on the leather sofa by the window, hands folded in her lap like she was waiting for a tennis match to start. Through the glass panel in the door, I could see Holden leaning against the hallway wall, that smug smile playing at the corners of his mouth. 3 predators in this room, one waiting outside. And me, supposedly powerless. Marin. Richard's voice carried that edge I'd learned to fear, the one that meant his patience was gone. Sign the paper. My hand trembled as I reached for the pen. Let them see the shake. Let them think I was still that girl who'd banged on her bedroom door, begging for mercy that would never come. I picked up the pen. held it over the line. Then I set it down. I need to upload the original file, I said, my voice small and broken, to make it more legally binding. The one from my laptop. It's still on the school server. Richard frowned. What are you talking about? The hack. I looked up at him with wide, desperate eyes. The performance of a lifetime. If I'm confessing, shouldn't there be proof? Real documentation? Otherwise, it's just my word against. I let my voice trail off. Like I was too scared to finish. Abernathy glanced at Richard. She has a point. If there's evidence of the breach, it would make the confession more airtight. There is no evidence, Richard said sharply. Because she didn't actually do it. But if someone asks questions later, I whispered, if Stanford finds out, they'll want proof that it was me and not. I swallowed hard. Not someone else. The bait dangled. Richard's eyes narrowed, calculating. He wanted this buried deep. Wanted every possible angle covered. His corporate instincts kicked in. Always get it in writing. Always document the fall guy. Fine. He nodded toward the desk. Make it quick. Abernathy stood abruptly, smoothing his suit jacket as he stepped aside to give me access. My heart hammered, but I kept my breathing shallow and quick. Terrified child. Compliant victim. I slid into the leather chair, still warm from him, and my fingers found the keyboard. The muscle memory took over. A single command line, typed so fast it barely registered. Enter. The wall monitor behind Abernathy's desk flared red. Richard stepped forward. What did you— The screen erupted with text. Forensic logs scrolling in real time, white text on crimson background, IP addresses, timestamps, access records. And there, in bold letters at the top, evidence of academic fraud. What is this? Abernathy reached over my shoulder, clawing for the mouse, but nothing responded. The screen kept scrolling. Holden's student ID number. The AP history final. The 100% plagiarism flag. Then the email chain appeared. The forward from Holden. The response from Richard. The attached expense report submitted to Wright and Associates Financial Group. Catherine made a small sound, like air escaping from a punctured tire. Turn it off, Richard said, his voice deadly quiet. I can't. Abernathy was clicking frantically. It's not responding. I don't. The printer started. That horrible grinding sound as it woke up. And then paper began spewing out. Page after page of evidence. The logs. The emails. The internal expense report proving that Richard Wright paid for his son's cheating using company funds. Company funds. The screen updated with new text. Copies of this evidence have been automatically distributed to the following recipients. The list appeared. Line by line. Ivy League Athletic Commission. Sterling Hall Academy School Board. Hartford Courier Press. Connecticut Attorney General's Office. IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Richard's face went white. Not pale. White. The color of bone. You little. He reached for the computer. But the monitor went black. The printer fell silent. 15 pages scattered across Abernathy's desk. Across the floor. Perfect copies of his fraud laid out like playing cards. Someone was knocking on the door. Hard, urgent knocking. Abernathy opened it with shaking hands. A security officer stood there. And behind him, a man in an expensive suit I recognized from Wright family dinners. School Board Chairman Wallace. Richard. Wallace's voice was ice. I just received a very interesting email. This is a misunderstanding, Richard started, but Wallace held up his phone. Embezzlement of corporate funds for personal use. Fraud. Bribery of a school official. He looked at Abernathy, who had gone gray. We need to have several conversations. Starting now. The security officer stepped into the room. Mr. Wright, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. You can't be serious. Richard's voice cracked. Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are. Wallace's expression was granite. That's why this is going to be handled by the book. Officer, please escort Mr. Wright to the security office. Someone from the school board's legal team is already on their way. Richard turned to me. Finally saw me. Really saw me. I stood up from Abernathy's chair. And I didn't look away. Don't blink. Don't apologize. His reputation was burning in real time. Every email recipient reading the evidence. The IRS flagging his account. Yale's recruitment office adding Holden to their permanent blacklist. The country club members Catherine cared so much about forwarding the Hartford Courier article to each other over morning coffee. Everything he built. Everything he valued. Every reason he thought he could threaten me. Ash. Marin. Catherine found her voice. Thin and desperate. Tell them this is a mistake. Tell them. I picked up my bag. Walked toward the door. Marin, please. I paused in the doorway. Looked back at them one last time. Richard, being guided out by security. His perfect suit suddenly looking cheap. Catherine frozen on the sofa, her country club pearls catching the light. Abernathy, holding the evidence papers with trembling hands. And through the window, Holden's face pressed against the glass. Smile finally gone. I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. The evidence spoke for me. I walked down the hallway, past lockers and classrooms and students who didn't know yet that their school just imploded. Past Mrs. Vance's computer science lab, where I caught a glimpse of her at her desk. She gave me the smallest nod. The front doors opened. Sunlight hit my face. I stepped outside and kept walking. No looking back. No waiting for approval. Just air. Just freedom. Just me. The notification chimed on my laptop, and I glanced up from the penthouse window where San Francisco Bay spread out in endless blue. 7 years since that Monday morning in Principal Abernathy's office, and the sound of an incoming message still makes my shoulders tense for half a second before my brain catches up. Old habits. But this isn't a threat. It's a video message from the scholarship fund I established 3 years ago. A girl named Emma, maybe 16, recorded herself in what looked like a college dorm room. Her voice shook slightly as she thanked me for the grant that helped her leave her toxic family situation and finish high school independently. I never thought I'd make it here, she said to the camera, but someone believed kids like us deserved a chance. I closed the laptop gently. Same device type that once represented my cage. Different context entirely. The coffee shop where I'm meeting Mrs. Vance is a 10-minute walk from my building. She's already there when I arrive, her gray hair shorter now, but her smile exactly as I remember it. We hug like the friends we've become, though she'll always be the teacher who saved my life. 7 years, she said, settling into her chair. Look at you. I don't need to look, I know what she sees. The quiet confidence of someone who built her own definition of worth from scratch. No expensive clothes trying to prove anything. No desperate energy seeking approval, just steady ground under my feet. The fund hit 50 recipients this month, I tell her. You're giving them what you gave me. A way out. She stirred her coffee slowly. Have you heard from them? Your family. The question doesn't sting anymore. Richard's still in federal prison. Fraud and embezzlement carried a longer sentence than he expected. Catherine burned through whatever money he'd hidden. Last I heard, she's been banned from every country club in Connecticut. And Holden? Working retail. No Yale, no lacrosse career, no immunity. I take a sip of my coffee. Turns out being the golden child doesn't mean much when the gold was always fake. Mrs. Vance nods, understanding that I'm not gloating, just stating facts, the wreckage they created for themselves after I walked away. Later, I take Justice to the beach. He's a rescue mutt, lean and scarred, with one ear that doesn't quite stand upright. We found each other 2 years ago, both of us knowing what it meant to survive something that should have broken us. My phone buzzes. Visual voicemail. Catherine's name on the screen. I stop walking, Justice sitting patiently beside me while I stare at the notification. My finger hovers over the play button. 7 years ago, I would have listened immediately, that old instinct to be useful flaring up despite everything. But I'm not that girl anymore. I don't press play. I don't even feel curious about what she wants. The desperation in her voice would be obvious even without hearing it. Probably money, probably framed as a mother's rightful due from her daughter. I delete the message. No anger, no triumph, just peace. Justice leans against my leg, and I scratch behind his good ear. The ocean stretches out in front of us, salt air filling my lungs. Free air, air I chose. We walk along the shoreline, my phone silent in my pocket, my shoulders loose. Somewhere behind me is a woman who gave birth to me but never saw my value. Somewhere ahead is a life I architected from nothing but my own spine and a teacher's belief that I deserved better. The silence between us isn't imprisonment anymore, it's choice. I breathe deep, and justice matches my pace, and we walk until the sun starts sinking toward the water. No looking back, no waiting for approval that will never come, just forward, always forward.